me give you a quick introduction to the speaker and the topic while we're setting up here. So our final keynote speaker of the day, Meron Gribetz, is a highly accomplished Israeli technology entrepreneur. He has previously done a company called Meta. You might have heard the name before, I guess, in another context. And Meta is a very early Silicon Valley-based augmented reality technology company. So that's what he was doing before. He was well awarded, like Forbes 30 under 30, a lot of other accomplishments. So he has been like a high-tech entrepreneur throughout his career. And I think now he's going to push the boundaries even more with his next project. So he's currently the CEO and the founder of a company called Neurocognition. And they are making a digital pill designed to rebalance your brain networks. Right? Like, so that is like some serious deep tech stuff. And you're going to get like kind of a preview of how this could look like. And his keynote is going to give you the insight into the future of neurocognition and the digital pill. And you'll get a small like AR preview on that if we like set up everything on stage. And Jesse is like the CTO, so he's like the brave soul who has like set all of this up, which is why I want to have like a brain-computer interface, because if I have a real brain interface, I don't need an augmented reality device anymore. All right. So, how we're doing on setup? All right. This is good. It's good for the tension. Like, we all like what a lot of people said, like one key part of like being an entrepreneur, what a lot of people have said is that like you need to deal with all kinds of pressure. So this is like the real life pressure of all of you like in the crowd and online, waiting for the final drinks, which we hope you can all join us later at the Texavania after party. All right, are we all good? All right, then please all give a super warm welcome to Meron on stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This should be fun. So, final keynote. Do we have energy for something a little different? Hopefully. All right, let's get started. We're going to show you a little bit of the future of the mind and brain chips. And let's start with drugs. Drugs are so amazing that we forget how much of ourselves we've lost. There's about 140 million Americans that take attention or depression drugs every year. That's actually more people in the States that have iPhones. So let's understand what's really going on. Hi, I'm Meron Gribetz. I'm trained in neuroscience, and I'm the CEO of a company called Neurocognition, which builds brain chips. Today, I'd like to share with you a mysterious link between three of the largest chronic disorders in the world: depression, ADHD, and anxiety. Now, when I was a kid, I was diagnosed with ADHD, like many CEOs, by the way. And I was almost kicked out of school. And that freaked out my mom. My mom's actually sitting right over there in the audience. Hi, Mom. You could stand up. So my mom did what any amazing mom would do, which is she found the best neurologist in town. And we went to this neurologist, and he told me, here's a drug called Ritalin, but you shouldn't talk about it too much, lest it affect your reputation. So I've actually kept it pretty hush-hush until today, actually. So I'm happy to share with you guys that I've been taking Ritalin for the last 30 years. And I knew that I was somewhat different and that this drug was going to make me better. And it did make me better, because within 1 year from almost getting kicked out of school, I was elected to the head of the student council and eventually got into Columbia University. So thank you, Ritalin, and thank you, Mom. And then university hit, and I began grappling with how this drug was affecting me personally. On the one hand, it was giving me superhuman attention levels, and that was pretty cool. But on the other hand, I was starting to feel this nagging feeling that something was getting lost inside of me. I was losing a part of myself. Now, the real side effects of these drugs are not actually the physiological ones, like heart palpitations, anxiety, sleeplessness, but they're actually things that have to do with our human identity. I felt like I was losing my social cognition. I lost a lot of my friends in the process and my silly personality as a kid. So the real side effects are a lot more stark. And I decided that I was going to quit Ritalin. And just as I began to wean myself off of the drug, I noticed something pretty amazing, pretty strange actually. About 50% of the student population at Columbia and these are some of the most focused, I assure you, and social people on the planet, they were actually sniffing around for my stash, asking me for my Ritalin. So I was trying to get rid of it, and suddenly the rest of the student body was pulling it in. And that was really strange. So kind of fascinated by this paradox, I decided I was going to study neuroscience to really try to figure out what's going on more deeply. Because it's not just Ritalin for ADHD, it's anxiolytics for anxiety, it's antidepressants for depression that are changing our personalities and taking something away. With antidepressants, the side effects are mental fog, fatigue, libido loss, suicidality when we switch cocktails, which are tough. But the really difficult one is something that has to do with the human spirit. It's called emotional blunting. That means a reduction of the emotional range the human can experience. On the one hand, they don't experience as much of the lows, but on the other hand, they can't experience as much of the highs. So extreme states of joy, extreme creativity get limited by this emotional blunting. Pondering this trade-off where you're making a deal with the devil and getting one thing but losing a big part of yourself, I met my future co-founder, Dr. Eric Luthart. Eric is the leading advanced neurosurgeon in the United States, having pioneered laser neurosurgery for glioblastoma, that's brain cancer, and ECOG, the second most successful brain chip by numbers for Parkinson's and epilepsy. Eric is a powerhouse. And he told me that he shared my interest in taking away mental health disorders without side effects. And in fact, he tried it on himself. He stimulated his own brain to increase his attention, and it worked really well. This is a neurosurgeon, okay? Not a body hacker, so I had to take it very, very seriously. He also told me that the same technique could actually work not only for enhancing his attention, but also for depression, anxiety, and a number of other things. So we got together and we spent some time designing and developing a brain chip. In fact, it's a new category of brain chips. It's the smallest in the world, and it doesn't even go into the brain. More on this in just a second. But first, I'd like to unscrew the skull off of my head and the head of humanity and show you guys a glimpse inside to the human brain. Today we're going to talk about, in the next few minutes, what are the brain changes that occur for ADHD and depression. Now, it's a pretty complex topic, so bear with me. We're going to cover three things pretty quickly. Number one, how does it work? Number two, where does it work? And number three, how can we change it? So, starting with how does it work? Depression and other mental health disorders are what we call networkopathies. That means that they're not in one specific part of the brain. There's no depression-specific part of the brain, but there are these distributed networks spanning all over the brain. Specifically, 4 of these networks, you can see over here, get out of balance, okay? 2 networks get really strong, and the other 2 get weak. And today, I'd like to focus with you on 2 of the key brain networks. First, the infamous default mode network. This is the bad guy for depression. It's your introverted network. It's the network that makes you focus on your traumatic memory. For example, if you get into a car accident and it's very, very painful, it will get encoded by the default mode. And it also takes care of rumination in that network. That's the voice in your head that goes, "Ah, gosh, what could I have done differently?" Sometimes it'll get flashbacks. And when that rumination becomes really strong, it starts to take more and more and more prefrontal cortical resources away from the second network, which is called the cognitive control network. This is the unsung hero of the brain. I'm really passionate about this network. The cognitive control network is what helps you process the outer world, including you listening to me right now, speaking to a loved one about an amazing, deep topic. When your dog licks your arm, it's all processed from the cognitive control network. A walk on the beach, a meditation session, all the good things in our lives. Now, the challenge with depression is that the introverted network default mode starts to steal the resources from the extroverted network, and we get out of balance. In a sense, we're locked inside of our heads. And the story of the cognitive control network becomes even more interesting, because it turns out that also in ADHD, it's decreased. So I want to point you over here. Again, this is really cutting-edge neuroscience that just came out in the last decade. So we're learning the top few diseases in the world, how they work for the first time. Over here, you can see the brain networks of depression are actually balanced, but with ADHD, just the cognitive control is decreased. Now, what does that mean? What that means is that if we can find the center of that particular network, the cognitive control, and stimulate it with precision and strengthen the network, we can actually rebalance the brain back into health, not only for the largest chronic disease in the world of depression, but also for the second largest chronic disease in the world, for ADHD. So this is super, super exciting. And I'd like to take us to the second topic. Where do we stimulate? Where is the center of this network? A few years ago, when I met Eric Luthart, he showed me the secret spot in the brain, the elusive default mode, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, which is that little yellow target on the left-hand side of the prefrontal cortex. Now that is the spot we have to hit in order to get people out of the largest diseases in the world. The problem is the existing technologies are simply not specific enough to hit that target. So let's do a quick survey of what's been used in order to fix depression in the last 70 years, just quickly. The first thing is, of course, drugs. Antidepressants are the most widely used treatment for depression. The problem is they blast your whole brain with neurotransmitters, unspecifically hitting the target, but also all sorts of unintended targets. And that creates some of the worst side effects on the planet and also a pretty low efficacy. So for about 100 million people around the world, antidepressants are simply not enough. They don't work. About a third of those patients will attempt to commit suicide at least once in their life. And for those patients that drugs don't even work for, we need the heavy cavalry. So drugs were invented 50 years ago. This is a 70-year-old technology. Welcome to the infamous electric shock therapy, or ECT. Electroconvulsive therapy, as the name implies, is designed to create a full seizure in your brain to essentially force these networks back into being reset, just like pressing the on-off button on your computer. So it's, as you can imagine, not a very pleasant thing. Actually, the doctor has to paralyze you so that you don't convulse. So you have side effects like amnesia, forgetfulness, confusion, and the worst side effect is that they say that people that go to ECT come back a different person. In other words, lasting personality changes. So that's why, for those patients 99.5% of them are too scared of electric shock therapy, and they have no solution at all, which is where we can come in and hopefully help humanity in this way. So we've spoken about, number one, how it works. The two networks are out of balance. Number two, where it works, left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And number three, what are the existing technologies, drugs, and ECT? Let's talk about the future. So a group of scientists, some of the leading neuroscientists and neurosurgeons in the world, like Ed Boyden, who is probably one of the most well-known neuroscientists, and Eric Luthart, leading advanced surgeon, myself, and some others, got together and we asked ourselves the following basic question. How is it that we're using 70-year-old technology, basically technology that was created when the Ford Model T was still being used, when there's Teslas driving around in the street? So we said, let's go ahead and create the Tesla of the mind. By far, the most advanced brain chip ever created for depression, so we can really help people, and that's exactly what we did. And it's called the digital pill. The digital pill, I have it here, I'll show you in a minute, it's got 3 levels of hyper-personalization that make it fitted to each individual user, something that's not been done before. First, it's the most custom and precise brain chip ever created. It has a technique called beam steering, which means we can shape the electricity to match your specific brain convolutions and networks. Never been done in a brain chip before. Second key feature is that unlike electric shock therapy and drugs, which only stimulate, they only go one way, they write into the brain very imprecisely. The digital pill can write to the brain much more precisely, but it can also read from the brain, creating these accurate and beautiful depression graphs on your iPhone that can help you track it along the way, and you can share it with your psychiatrist or with your family if you want. It's a very, very novel technique. And the third thing that I'm actually most excited about is that the digital pill doesn't even have to go in the brain. In a 30-minute outpatient procedure, it gets slipped under the skin, and it's like a cosmetic implant in terms of invasiveness. Many types of doctors, not just trained neurosurgeons, can do it, and so it can now be used by millions and millions of more patients, and they can be helped. So we're kind of trying to democratize this. So the best part about it is that it's here, and it's very small, so it can slip out of the pocket sometimes. The digital pill is about 10 times smaller than any other depression technology ever created. So coming close to the mic, because it's hard to see over there, you can kind of see it's a few eyelashes thick. It's very, very, very tiny. The digital pill, this is actually the first novel brain stimulation technology to reach human-grade manufacturing in almost 10 years. So that's that. As a company, I wanted to share with you a little bit. We've raised our first round. We're completing our first 5 years of preclinical animal studies. We're getting ready for our human trials, and there's a whole lot to do. So if you'd like to partner with us, here's some information. We're at innercosmos.io. Lots of ways you can get involved with our community and ways we can collaborate, so feel free. I also listed my personal email, m@innercosmos.io, and you can DM me on LinkedIn as well. That's it. One more thing. I wanted to share with you something that I haven't actually shared publicly. We can go off of the AR for now. I'll let you know here in this room that we have just received the very first FDA IDE approvals and hospital review board approvals to conduct the first new trial for a new depression stimulation technique in almost 20 years. That's right, the FDA hasn't cleared anything that's significantly novel in depression, the largest disease in the world in almost 20 years until now. So something really big is happening. Now, it took a path of, on the way to trying to increase my attention, I had to, well, let's be honest, on the way to not getting kicked out of school, I had to lose my friends, which was heartbreaking. But it got me on a new path towards the digital pill, which I believe is the next step for so much of our species that are trapped right now inside of mental health disorders. So, let us take back our cognitive power and our humanity. Thank you very much, Mulțumesc. Appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Meron, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That was like truly great.
Thank
you for the bravery. I'm very, very much looking.
It's Jesse and Yvette. That's the team that built this. This has nothing to do with me.
You're on stage, so all of you did a fantastic job.
Thank you very much.